The chamber stretched beyond what human eyes could properly measure. Carved from the heart of a dead star, the Galactic Council headquarters existed at the center of known space. Its walls shimmered with light from 1,000 different suns, each beam representing a civilization that had earned the right to speak among the stars. Ambassador Victor Hawley stood alone on the speaking platform. He was 52 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too many battles during his years in military intelligence. Around him, rising in endless tiers that disappeared into darkness above, sat the representatives of 800 species from across the galaxy. The silence was absolute. Victor had prepared for this moment for 30 years. Every human being who had ever worked on the contact protocol had dreamed of standing here, but none of them had imagined it would happen like this. "You stand accused," the Supreme Chancellor announced. The being was massive, nearly 20 feet tall, with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that burned with cold blue fire. Chancellor Vorath had ruled the council for 600 years. His voice rolled through the chamber like distant thunder. "The Dravaki Empire has filed formal charges against your species. You are accused of unauthorized technological development. You are accused of constructing weapons in violation of Galactic Statute 1772. You are accused of threatening the stability of this council." Victor did not move. Behind him, barely visible in the shadows of the human delegation box, his team watched with held breath. Dr. Elena Vargas, the xenolinguist who had first decoded alien transmissions. Colonel James Okonkwo, who had spent 20 years building Earth's secret defense network. And Maya Torres, a young genius who had done something no other species in galactic history had ever accomplished. "How do you answer these charges?" Chancellor Vorath demanded. Victor looked up at the endless tiers of alien faces. Some were curious. Many were hostile. A few, mostly from the older races, watched with expressions that might have been fear. "Before I answer," Victor said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber through the translation network, "I would like to ask a question." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. No accused species had ever asked a question before answering charges. Chancellor Vorath's burning eyes narrowed. "You may ask, how many of you have tried to hack into Earth's computer networks in the last 50 years? The murmurs became a roar. Species began shouting in 100 different languages. The Dravaki delegation, massive reptilian warriors in ceremonial armor, rose to their feet in outrage. Chancellor Vorath raised one enormous hand, and silence fell instantly. "Explain yourself, human." Victor smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. 73, he said. 73 different species have attempted to infiltrate our networks since we first detected alien signals in 1977. Some of you wanted to study us. Some wanted to steal from us. Some wanted to determine whether we were a threat. He paused, letting his words sink in. All of you failed. Lies. The Dravaki ambassador surged forward. Ambassador Kreth was a monster by any human standard, 8 feet of scaled muscle and barely contained violence. Your species is classified as Tier 6. Your technology is primitive. You could not possibly detect our probes. You sent 17 infiltration attempts, Victor said calmly. The first was in 1998, targeting our early internet infrastructure. The most recent was 6 months ago, attempting to access our military satellite network. Every single one was detected, analyzed, and neutralized within hours. The chamber erupted again. Chancellor Vorath did not call for silence this time. His ancient eyes were fixed on Victor with new intensity. You claim to have defeated the infiltration technology of the Dravaki Empire, Vorath said slowly. Their systems are classified as Tier 2, second only to the founders themselves. I am not claiming anything, Victor said. I am stating facts. He reached into his pocket and produced a small device. Immediately, weapons powered up across the chamber. Security drones descended from hidden alcoves. The Dravaki warriors drew blades that hummed with deadly energy. Victor held up the device. It was no larger than a coin. This is a data crystal. On it, you will find complete records of every infiltration attempt made against Earth by every species in this chamber. Dates, methods, the specific vulnerabilities they tried to exploit. And most importantly, he paused, and his smile grew cold. The counter-infiltrations we performed in response. Absolute silence fell. You see, Victor continued, humanity has a saying. The best defense is a good offense. When the Dravaki tried to hack our systems, we hacked them back. When the Morthani collective attempted to study our neural networks, we mapped their entire civilization's communication infrastructure. When the hegemony of the Endless sent their famous ghost probes to analyze our genetic structure, we obtained complete copies of their medical and military databases. He held up the crystal. This device contains enough information to destabilize every major power in this council. Trade secrets, military capabilities, political scandals, the private communications of ambassadors and emperors and hive minds. All of it gathered by a species you classified as primitive. A species you thought you could spy on without consequence. Chancellor Vorath rose slowly from his throne. At his full height, he towered over the chamber, a being of terrible power and ancient authority. You dare threaten this council? No, Victor said. I am explaining why you should not threaten Earth. He turned in a slow circle, addressing the entire assembly. The Dravaki Empire wants to conquer our world. They have filed these false charges to justify an invasion. They have done this before to 47 other species. We know because we have read their classified histories. He pointed at the Dravaki delegation. We know about the Corvin massacre. We know about the secret breeding programs. We know about the weapons you have hidden in the forbidden zones. Ambassador Kreth's scales had turned pale. His warriors looked at each other with barely concealed panic. We are not a threat to this council, Victor said, his voice dropping to something almost gentle. But we are not prey either. Humanity did not survive ice ages and world wars and nuclear standoffs by being weak. We did not claw our way to the stars by being stupid. And we absolutely did not spend the last 50 years watching you watch us without learning everything we possibly could. He pressed a button on the crystal. Above him, a holographic display appeared, showing Earth in all its blue and green beauty. This is our home. It is small. It is fragile. It holds 8 billion human beings who want nothing more than to live their lives in peace. The display shifted, showing a web of connections spreading outward from Earth. This is what we have built. A network that touches every major power in the galaxy. A web of information that we will use to protect ourselves. Victor looked directly at Chancellor Vorath. The Dravaki want Earth. They can try to take it. But before a single one of their ships reaches our atmosphere, every secret they have ever tried to hide will be transmitted to every species in this council. Their allies will become their enemies. Their empire will tear itself apart. He let the words hang in the air. So I ask you, Chancellor, I ask all of you, is Earth worth that price? The silence stretched for a long moment. Then, slowly, Chancellor Vorath began to laugh. It was a deep sound, rumbling through the chamber like the shifting of tectonic plates. In 600 years, the Chancellor said, no species has ever stood on that platform and surprised me. He looked at Victor with something that might have been respect. You have surprised me, human. He turned to the Dravaki delegation. Ambassador Kreth, this council will hear evidence on your charges. But I suggest you consider carefully whether you wish to proceed. Victor allowed himself a small breath of relief. They had bought time. Not safety, not yet, but time. In the shadows of the human delegation box, Maya Torres gripped her own data tablet with white-knuckled intensity. The ambassador had revealed what they wanted revealed, but he had not mentioned the other project, the one that made their information network look like a children's toy project. Lazarus, the weapon that could end wars before they started. The weapon the galaxy must never learn about. Not yet. 3 weeks had passed since the confrontation in the council chamber. 3 weeks of negotiations, threats, and political maneuvering that tested every skill Victor Hawley possessed. The Javaki had not withdrawn their charges, but they had not pressed forward either. They were waiting, calculating, searching for weakness. Tonight, Victor sat alone in the human embassy, a small suite of rooms in the lower levels of the council station. Outside, through a window of transparent metal, the stars wheeled slowly past. Somewhere out there, 8 billion humans went about their lives, unaware that their survival hung by a thread. A soft chime announced a visitor. Victor checked the security display and frowned. The face that looked back at him was unexpected. "Ambassador Corinth," he said, opening the door. "This is a surprise." The Vialari ambassador was one of the most respected beings in the council. Her species had achieved space travel while humans were still discovering fire. She stood barely 4 feet tall, with skin like burnished copper and eyes that held the wisdom of 10,000 years. Unlike the Dravaki, the Velari had never tried to infiltrate Earth. They preferred to watch and wait. "May I enter?" Her voice was musical, almost hypnotic. "I bring news that you must hear." Victor stepped aside. Corinth moved into the room with the grace of flowing water and settled onto a chair that adjusted to accommodate her small frame. "You performed well in the chamber," she said. "Better than any young species has a right to expect. But I fear it was not enough." "What do you mean?" "The Dravaki have formed an alliance. The Morthan Collective has agreed to support their conquest claim. So has the Kathrani Dominion. Together, they control nearly a quarter of the Council's votes." Victor felt cold spreading through his chest. The Morthan were biological engineers who could create plagues tailored to destroy specific species. The Kathrani were masters of energy weapons that could crack planets like eggs. "Why are you telling me this?" Corinth's ancient eyes met his. "Because I have watched your species for a very long time, Victor Hall. Since before you were born. Since before your grandfather was born. I was present when your first radio signals reached our monitoring stations." She paused. "And I was present when my people decided to do nothing about you. I do not understand. The standard procedure for new species is assessment and classification. If a civilization shows promise, we offer guidance. If they show danger, we contain them. If they show neither, we ignore them." Corinth leaned forward. "Humanity showed both, promise and danger in equal measure. We could not decide what to do with you, so we did nothing. We watched and waited." Victor processed this information. "And what did you see?" "We saw a species that should have destroyed itself a dozen times over. Your weapons, your wars, your capacity for cruelty, these things rival the worst civilizations in galactic history. But we also saw something else. Something we had never encountered before." "What?" "Hope." The word hung in the air between them. "Every time your species approached the brink of annihilation, you pulled back. Every time darkness threatened to consume you, someone stepped forward with light. You are not peaceful beings, Victor Hall, but you are beings who choose peace over and over again, despite every instinct that drives you toward violence." She rose from her chair and walked to the window. "This is why I am here. The Dravaki do not understand what they are threatening. They see only your weapons, your networks, your information. They do not see the fire that burns beneath it all. The stubborn, irrational, magnificent fire that refuses to be extinguished. You believe we can win this? I believe that if you lose, the galaxy will be diminished. And I am too old to watch another light go out. She turned to face him. There is a way to break the alliance. The Morthan Collective has a secret, something they have hidden for 3 centuries. Their homeworld is dying. A genetic plague of their own creation, turned against them by a species they tried to destroy. They have perhaps 50 years before extinction claims them. Victor's mind raced. They want something from the Dravaki. Medical technology? No. They want fresh genetic material. New populations to experiment on, to harvest, to rebuild their species from the biological foundations of others. Corinth's expression grew hard. They joined the alliance because the Dravaki promised them Earth. 8 billion test subjects for their laboratories. The cold in Victor's chest turned to ice. You could expose them. Corinth continued. Reveal their plague to the Council. No species would ally with them if they knew the truth. The Morthan would be quarantined, and their support for the Dravaki would collapse. But that would not stop the Kethrani. No, the Kethrani have their own reasons for wanting Earth destroyed. Reasons that go back further than human history. Corinth hesitated. You must understand, Victor Hawley, that humanity is not the first species to develop as you have. Every few thousand years, a civilization emerges that does not fit the patterns, that grows too fast, learns too quickly, threatens to upset the balance of power. What happens to them? They disappear, sometimes through war, sometimes through internal collapse. Sometimes they simply vanish, and no one remembers they ever existed. Her eyes met his. The Kethrani are the instrument of this disappearance. They have been the Council's silent enforcers for longer than most species have been spacefaring. Victor felt the weight of ancient history pressing down on him. You are saying the Kethrani want us dead because we are dangerous? I am saying the Kethrani want you dead because you are unprecedented. Your technology should have taken 1,000 years to develop. You achieved it in decades. Your understanding of information systems rivals species that have been spacefaring for millennia. And there is something else, something that frightens them more than all the rest. What? Corinth moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. You are not afraid of them. Every other young species that has faced the Council has been terrified. They have begged for mercy, offered tribute, accepted whatever conditions were demanded. But you walked into that chamber and threatened them back. You looked at the most powerful beings in the galaxy and told them they should be afraid of you. She reached up and placed one small hand on Victor's arm. The Kethrani believe you might actually win, and that terrifies them more than anything else in the universe. Victor was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was steady despite the turmoil in his mind. What would you have us do? Survive. Whatever it takes, whatever price must be paid, survive. Corinth stepped back. I cannot help you openly. The Valari must remain neutral to maintain our position. But I can tell you this. There are others who share my hope. Not many, but enough. Seek the archivists in the deep levels. Seek the wandering scholars of the outer rim. Seek the beings who remember what the galaxy was before the current order, and what it might become again. She walked toward the door. One more thing. Victor Hall, the young woman in your delegation, Maya Torres. Her work on what you call quantum entanglement communication has not gone unnoticed. There are those who believe she has achieved something that should have been impossible, something that breaks the fundamental laws that govern our understanding of information. Victor kept his expression neutral. She is simply a communication specialist, of course. Corinth smiled, and in that smile was the knowledge of 10,000 years. Protect her. Whatever else happens, protect her. The future may depend on it more than you know. She was gone before Victor could respond. He stood alone in the embassy, staring at the stars. feeling the weight of responsibility settle onto his shoulders like a physical burden. The Dravaki wanted Earth for conquest. The Morthan wanted humans for experiments. The Kethrani wanted humanity erased from existence itself. And somewhere in the shadows, ancient powers watched and waited to see which way the balance would fall. Victor reached for his communicator. Dr. Vargas, Colonel Okonkwo, Maya, I need you in the briefing room immediately. He paused. It is time you learned what we are really up against. And somewhere deep in the station, in a chamber that few living beings knew existed, ancient eyes opened. They had been watching humans for 50 years, waiting for this moment. The moment when humanity would learn the truth about its place in the universe. The truth that could either save them or doom them forever. The briefing room was buried deep within the human embassy, shielded by layers of technology that even the Council's sensors could not penetrate. It had taken Earth's best engineers 15 years to develop materials that could block alien surveillance. 15 years of paranoid, relentless work that had finally proven worthwhile. Victor looked at his team. Dr. Elena Vargas, her dark eyes sharp with intelligence. Colonel James Okonkwo, whose calm exterior hid a tactical mind that had redesigned Earth's entire defense strategy. And Maya Torres, barely 30 years old, whose brain held secrets that could reshape the galaxy. What I am about to tell you does not leave this room, Victor said. Not until I give authorization. Not for any reason. They nodded. The Dravaki are the least of our problems. The Morthan are terrifying, but predictable. The Kethrani. He paused. The Kethrani are something else entirely. He activated a holographic display. Images appeared, ancient and degraded, showing civilizations that had long since turned to dust. These are the Forerunners. 12 different species that achieved technological breakthroughs similar to ours over the past 100,000 years. Every single one of them was destroyed before they could challenge the established order. Elena leaned forward. Destroyed by whom? The Kethrani. They serve as the Council's hidden enforcers. When a species grows too dangerous, the Kethrani are deployed. They have weapons we have never seen, capabilities we cannot measure. And according to Ambassador Corinth of the Valari, they have already decided that humanity must die. Colonel Okonkwo's jaw tightened. Then we need to strike first. We cannot. Victor shook his head. If we attack the Kethrani, we prove that we are the threat the Council fears. Every neutral species would turn against us. We would be fighting the entire galaxy. Then what do we do? Maya asked quietly. Victor turned to her. You are what we do. The others looked confused, but Maya's face went pale. Ambassador Corinth mentioned your work, Victor continued. She said you achieved something impossible. She said there are beings in this station who are very interested in what you have done. He stepped closer. I need to know, Maya. I need to know what Project Lazarus really is. Maya was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Do you understand what quantum entanglement is? 2 particles connected across any distance. Change one, the other changes instantly. That is the simple version. The truth is more complex. Maya pulled up a new display, showing equations that made Elena's eyes widen. Normal quantum entanglement is random. You cannot use it to send information because you cannot control what the particles do. That is what every scientist in the galaxy believes. But you found a way around it. Not around it. Through it. Maya's fingers danced across the display, bringing up diagrams that seemed to twist in impossible directions. I discovered that entanglement is not just a connection between particles. It is a connection between information itself. Every piece of data in the universe is linked to every other piece. The connections are hidden, buried in the structure of reality, but they are there. Colonel Okonkwo frowned. What does that mean in practical terms? It means I can access any computer in the galaxy, instantly, without any signal that can be detected or blocked. Maya's voice was steady now, the voice of a scientist explaining her life's work. Project Lazarus is not a weapon. It is a key that opens every door in the universe. The silence that followed was absolute. Victor spoke first. You can hack any system, any network, anywhere. Not hack. That implies brute force, intrusion, leaving traces. What I do is different. I do not break into systems. I become part of them. I read their data as if it were my own memories. I can change their information as easily as I can change my thoughts. She looked at each of them in turn. When Ambassador Hale demonstrated our information capabilities to the Council, he showed them what we wanted them to see. He did not show them this. Why not? Elena asked. Because if the Council knew what I could do, they would not just want to conquer Earth. They would want to destroy it so completely that nothing remained. Not a single atom. Not a single memory. Maya's eyes were haunted. I have seen into the Kethrani systems. I know what they are planning. And I know something else. Something that changes everything. Tell us, Victor commanded. The Kethrani are afraid. Not of us, specifically. Of what we represent. Maya brought up a new image. A map of the galaxy that showed strange patterns in the distribution of intelligent life. Look at this. Every advanced civilization is clustered in the same regions. The same types of star systems. The same evolutionary conditions. It is too uniform to be natural. Elena studied the map. You are saying someone designed this? I am saying the Kethrani designed it. They have been manipulating the development of intelligent life for hundreds of thousands of years. They decide which species survive and which are eliminated. They control the Council from the shadows. And they do all of this because they are terrified of one thing. What? Competition. Maya's voice dropped. The Kethrani are not the most advanced species in the galaxy. They are the survivors of a war that happened before this galaxy even had a name. A war against beings so powerful that reality itself was their battlefield. The Kethrani won that war through genocide. They destroyed their enemies so completely that nothing remained, and then they destroyed every species that might one day grow strong enough to threaten them. Victor felt the pieces falling into place. And humanity ... Humanity is growing too fast, learning too quickly, following a path that looks like the one their ancient enemies followed. Maya met his eyes. They will not negotiate. They will not accept surrender. They will burn Earth to ashes and scatter those ashes across the void, and they will do it soon. How soon? The council session in 3 days. They are going to call for a vote, and they have enough support to pass a resolution authorizing military action. Once that happens, the Kethrani fleet will move. Earth's defenses will not hold for more than a few hours. Colonel Okonkwo stood abruptly. Then we use Lazarus. If Maya can access any system, she can shut down the Kethrani fleet before they launch. No, Maya shook her head. The Kethrani have safeguards. Their systems are isolated, hardwired, designed to function even if every computer in the galaxy is compromised. I cannot stop their ships. Then what can you do? Maya was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, there was something new in her voice. Something that sounded almost like hope. I can find their weakness. Every system has one. Every species has secrets they would do anything to protect. I have been searching the Kethrani databases for weeks, looking for something we can use. She pulled up a final image, encrypted files marked with symbols that predated the council itself. And I found it. The image showed a planet. Not the Kethrani homeworld, but something older. Something hidden. This is the Vault of Origins. the place where the Kethrani keep the remains of their ancient enemies, the species they destroyed to claim this galaxy. Maya's eyes were bright with discovery. They did not destroy everything. They kept samples, artifacts, technology. They have been studying it for hundreds of thousands of years, trying to understand how beings so powerful could have existed. Why would they keep such things? Because they are afraid it might happen again. Because they want to know the signs, the warnings, the patterns that indicate when a new threat is emerging. Maya smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. And because buried somewhere in that vault is the one thing they fear more than anything else in the universe. What? A message, left by their enemies before the end. A warning that they were not the last of their kind. That somewhere in the universe, others like them still exist. Others who are simply ... waiting. Victor understood immediately. If we reveal this to the Council ... the Kethrani's entire position depends on being the ultimate authority. The species that protects the galaxy from threats beyond understanding. If the Council learns they have been hiding evidence of beings even more powerful, beings that might still exist, their credibility collapses. Their alliances fall apart. Their control ends. Victor looked at his team. Elena's face showed the beginning of hope. Okonkwo's tactical mind was already calculating possibilities. And Maya, young Maya, who had unlocked secrets older than human civilization, stood ready to change the course of history. 3 days, Victor said. We have 3 days to break into the most secure facility in the galaxy. Find evidence that has been hidden for longer than our species has existed, and use it to save our world. He straightened, feeling the weight of command settle onto his shoulders. Let us get to work. The Vault of Origins was not in any system the Council officially recognized. It existed in a region of space that had been declared forbidden for longer than most species could remember. Even approaching its coordinates was punishable by death. Maya had found a way in. The ship was small, barely large enough for the 4 of them, disguised as a piece of mining debris drifting through the void. For 16 hours, they had traveled in silence, systems powered down to minimal levels, hoping that the Kethrani's sensors would pass over them without interest. Now they hung in space before something that defied comprehension. The vault was not a building or a station. It was a sphere of absolute darkness, nearly 1,000 miles across, that swallowed every form of light and radiation that touched it. Stars visible behind it seemed to bend around its edges, distorted by gravitational forces that should have been impossible for an object its size. How do we get inside? Colonel Okonkwo asked quietly. Maya studied her instruments with intense concentration. There is a single entrance. The Kethrani use ships designed specifically for this purpose, vessels that can survive the transition through the boundary. We do not have such a ship. Then how ... I can open the door from inside. Maya's fingers moved across her console, her eyes taking on a distant quality as she reached across the impossible distances of quantum space. The vault systems are ancient, but they still operate on the same fundamental principles as every other computer in the universe. Information flows. Connections exist. I just need to find them. Minutes passed. The sphere of darkness hung before them, patient and eternal. Then Maya gasped. I am in. The systems are ... old. So old. But I can read them. Her voice dropped to a whisper. There is so much here. Records of species that existed before the first stars formed. Technology that could remake reality. And the message. I can see it. It is real. Can you transmit it? Victor demanded. Not from here. The vault security prevents any signal from leaving. We need to go inside, physically retrieve a data crystal, and escape before the Kethrani realize what has happened. How long do we have? The Kethrani patrol this region every 6 hours. The last patrol passed 2 hours ago. We have 4 hours to enter the vault, find the archive chamber, retrieve the evidence, and reach minimum safe distance for faster-than-light travel. Victor looked at his team. Elena, Okonkwo, you stay with the ship. Keep it ready for immediate departure. Maya and I will go inside. That is suicide, Okonkwo protested. You have no idea what defenses are waiting in there. Maya can see the internal systems. She can guide us past any automated security. Victor was already moving toward the airlock. We do not have time to debate this. Every minute we waste is a minute closer to Earth's destruction. Maya joined him, carrying a device that looked like a simple tablet but contained technology that would have seemed like magic to most species in the galaxy. Together, they sealed the airlock and launched themselves into the void. The journey to the vault's entrance took 20 minutes. Without a proper ship, they had to use personal thrusters, tiny bursts of propulsion that pushed them through the emptiness at agonizing speed. The sphere grew larger and larger until it filled their entire field of vision. A wall of absolute nothing that seemed to drink in the universe itself. There. Maya pointed to a spot on the surface that looked identical to every other spot. I have opened the portal. We have 30 seconds before it closes automatically. They increased speed, diving toward the darkness. Victor felt a moment of primal terror as the boundary approached, his primitive brain screaming that he was falling into oblivion. Then they passed through, and terror became wonder. The interior of the vault was filled with light. Soft, golden illumination that had no visible source, revealing a space that seemed even larger than the sphere's exterior. Structures floated in the void, platforms and chambers connected by bridges of solidified energy, each one holding artifacts from civilizations that had been dead for longer than Earth had existed. This way. Maya led him through the maze of platforms, her tablet guiding them toward their destination. They passed displays of weapons that could have destroyed solar systems, artwork that shifted and changed when observed, and sealed containers marked with warnings and languages that predated the Kathrani themselves. How much time? Victor asked. 3 hours remaining. The archive chamber is close. They reached a platform larger than the others, dominated by a single structure that looked like a crystalline tree growing from the metal floor. Its branches held thousands of small objects, each one glowing with internal light. Data crystals, Maya breathed. Each one contains the complete knowledge of a destroyed species. Their history, their science, their culture. Everything they were, preserved forever by the Kathrani as a reminder of their victory. Which one do we need? Maya consulted her tablet, then pointed to a crystal near the tree's apex. It glowed with a color that Victor had no name for, a shade that seemed to exist outside the normal spectrum of light. That one. It contains the message. The proof that the Kathrani's enemies survived, that beings of terrible power are still somewhere in the universe, waiting. Victor began climbing. The crystal tree's branches were smooth, but offered enough grip for careful progress. Hand over hand, he ascended toward the prize, aware that every second brought them closer to discovery. He was reaching for the crystal when the alarms began. Maya! I know. A patrol returned early. They detected our ship. Her voice was steady despite the fear in her eyes. We have maybe 10 minutes before they breach the vault. Victor grabbed the crystal and began his descent. Can we reach the entrance in time? No. They will seal it before we get there. Maya was working furiously on her tablet. But there might be another way. The vault has emergency exits, portals designed to evacuate valuable materials if the facility was ever attacked. I am trying to activate one. The tree shuddered. Victor lost his grip and fell, tumbling through the low gravity until he managed to grab a branch and slow his descent. The crystal remained clutched in his other hand, They are entering the vault, Maya shouted. I can see them. 12 Kethrani warriors in combat armor. They are scanning for intruders. Victor dropped the last few feet to the platform. The exit? I found one, but it will deposit us in Kethrani space, surrounded by their fleet. We will be captured immediately. Better captured than dead. At least we have a chance to get the information out. You do not understand. Maya's face was pale. Kethrani interrogation techniques can extract any information from any mind. They will learn everything. Project Lazarus. Earth's defenses. Every secret we have. Victor felt despair beginning to close around him. They had come so far, achieved so much, only to fail at the final moment. Earth would burn, and everything humanity had built would become nothing more than another display in this terrible museum. Then, Maya smiled. It was a strange smile, filled with something Victor could not identify. Determination, perhaps, or acceptance. There is another option, she said quietly. I can transmit the crystal's contents directly into the Council's communication network. Every species in the galaxy would receive the message simultaneously. The Kethrani could not suppress it or explain it away. How? You said no signal can leave the vault. No artificial signal. No technology. Maya met his eyes. But quantum entanglement is not technology. It is the fundamental structure of reality itself. I can send the information, but ... double quotes. But what? The process requires complete concentration. I will not be able to move or defend myself. And when it is done ... She hesitated. My mind will be ... dispersed, spread across every system I touched. I will not survive. No. Victor grabbed her arm. There has to be another way. There is not. And we do not have time to argue. Maya gently removed his hand. You need to hold off the Kethrani long enough for me to complete the transmission. Can you do that? Victor looked at the young woman who held the fate of humanity in her mind. She was calm, resolute, ready to sacrifice everything for a species that would never know her name. How long? 5 minutes. Maybe 6. Victor drew the plasma pistol from his belt. It was a pathetic weapon compared to what the Kethrani carried, but it was what he had. And I will give you 6 minutes. Maya nodded and closed her eyes. Around her, the air began to shimmer with strange energies as she reached out across the universe, preparing to send a message that would change everything. Victor turned to face the approaching warriors. 12 against 1. Impossible odds. He smiled grimly. Humanity had always been good at impossible odds. The first Kethrani came into view, and Victor opened fire. The Kethrani were fast. Faster than any enemy Victor had ever faced. They moved like liquid shadows, their armor absorbing his plasma bolts without visible damage. But he had not survived 30 years of covert operations by fighting fair. He ducked behind a display case, containing what looked like a fossilized heart, the size of a house. The Kethrani's return fire shattered artifacts that had existed since before humanity's ancestors crawled from the primordial ocean. 4 minutes. Maya called. Her voice was distant, most of her consciousness already spreading across the infinite network of quantum connections. Victor rolled, fired, and took down one warrior with a shot to the joint between helmet and neck armor. 11 left. He grabbed a fallen weapon, a device he did not understand, and threw it at the nearest cluster of enemies. It exploded with force that sent 3 of them tumbling through the low gravity. 8 left. 3 minutes. The Kethrani adapted. They spread out, approaching from multiple angles, coordinating with the precision of a single mind. Victor's plasma pistol overheated and died. He discarded it and picked up another alien weapon, praying it would function in his hands. It did. Blue fire erupted from its barrel, and another Kethrani fell. 7 left. 2 minutes. Victor took a hit to his shoulder. The pain was extraordinary, burning through his nerve endings like acid. He stumbled, but did not fall. Could not fall. Not while Maya still needed time. He found cover behind a pillar of unknown metal and counted his remaining shots. 3, maybe 4. Against 7 warriors who knew this environment far better than he did. Then something unexpected happened. One of the Kethrani stopped advancing. Then another. They stood frozen, their weapons lowering, their helmeted heads turning towards something Victor could not see. What is happening? He shouted. The transmission. Maya's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. They are receiving it. Every Kethrani in the galaxy is receiving it right now. Victor risked a glance around his pillar. The warriors were still, lost in whatever message was flooding their communication networks. On their helmet displays, symbols scrolled past too fast to read. 1 minute. Maya, you need to stop. You have done enough. We can escape now. Not yet. The message is spreading, but I need to anchor it. Make it permanent. Make it so they can never erase it or deny it. Her voice was fading, becoming less distinct with each word. Victor, tell Earth I was not afraid. Tell them it was worth it. Maya, tell them humanity is worth dying for. The shimmering around her intensified until Victor had to shield his eyes. He heard her cry out once, a sound of transcendence rather than pain. And then silence fell. The transmission was complete. Victor stood slowly, waiting for the Kethrani to recover and finish what they had started. But when the warriors finally moved, they did not attack. They stood in confusion, looking at each other, at the vault around them, at the single human who had invaded their most sacred space. Then they received new orders. Victor watched as they stiffened, listened to communications he could not hear, and then turned and walked away without a backward glance. He did not understand until he was back aboard the ship, racing toward friendly space with Elena and Okonkwo demanding explanations. He could barely form. He did not truly understand until he reached the council station and found chaos. Waiting. The chamber where humanity had first been judged was in pandemonium. Species that had been enemies for millennia stood together, demanding answers. The Kethrani delegation seats were empty. Chancellor Vorath had called an emergency session, but no one could agree on what to do. And on every display screen, in every language known to the galaxy, Maya's message played on repeat. It showed the true history of the Kethrani, their genocide of ancient beings, their manipulation of galactic civilization for hundreds of thousands of years, their hidden fears and secret weaknesses. And most damning of all, it showed the message from their ancient enemies. We are not gone. We are waiting. When the time is right, we will return. And those who destroyed our children will answer for their crimes. The message was signed with symbols that made the oldest races in the council tremble with recognition. Symbols that predated the galaxy itself. Victor watched the chaos from the human delegation box. Elena sat beside him, tears streaming down her face. Okonkwo stood at attention, his expression unreadable. What happens now? Elena whispered. Now the galaxy decides what to do with the truth, Victor said. The Kethrani cannot silence this, cannot deny it. Every species knows what they have done, and every species knows that something far more powerful may still exist. Chancellor Vorath approached the speaking platform and raised his hands for silence. It took several minutes for the chamber to quiet. The evidence presented is undeniable, Vorath said slowly. The Kethrani have withdrawn their support for the Dravaki conquest claim. The Morthan Collective has requested asylum, citing fear of retaliation. The Alliance Against Earth has collapsed. He turned to look at Victor. Furthermore, this council formally rescinds all charges against humanity. Your species is granted full membership, with all rights and protections that status entails. A murmur ran through the chamber. Victor stood. Thank you, Chancellor. But I must make something clear. He walked to the platform, aware of thousands of eyes watching. Humanity did not do this alone. One of our own gave her life to reveal the truth. Her name was Maya Torres. She was 30 years old. She was brilliant and brave, and she believed that knowledge should not be hoarded by those in power. He looked around the chamber. Maya could have used her gifts to give humanity control over every system in the galaxy. She could have made us the new Kathrani, ruling through fear and secrets. Instead, she chose to share the truth with everyone. That is who we are. That is who we choose to be. Victor pulled the data crystal from his pocket, the artifact from the vault that Maya had held in her dying moments. This crystal contains information that could change everything. Technologies beyond anything the Council has ever seen. Knowledge that could make any species into gods. He set it on the platform. I give it to the Council freely. Let it be studied by all. Let its secrets benefit everyone. Let Maya's sacrifice mean something. Chancellor Vorath stared at the crystal, then at Victor. In 600 years, he said quietly, no species has ever willingly shared such power. Then perhaps it is time for things to change. The vote that followed was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, humanity was welcomed not as a conquered people, not as a threat to be contained, but as equals, as partners, as something new under the ancient stars. 1 year later, Victor stood on the observation deck of Earth's first interstellar embassy, watching ships from 100 worlds arrive for the inaugural session of the new council. The old order had fallen. The Kathrani had withdrawn to their homeworld, their authority shattered. The species they had oppressed for millennia were finally free to chart their own courses. Elena joined him at the window. The archivist sent a message, she said. They want to establish an exchange program. Share knowledge between species openly, without restriction. Maya would have liked that. Yes, she would have. Elena paused. Do you think we made the right choice? Giving away the crystal? Victor thought about it. About the power they had surrendered. About the trust they had placed in species who had tried to destroy them. Yes, he said finally. I do. Not because it was safe or easy, but because it was right. Because humanity's strength was never about what we could take. It was always about what we could give. Through the window, Earth hung in the darkness, blue and green and impossibly beautiful. 8 billion humans living their lives, unaware of how close they had come to annihilation. Unaware that a young woman named Maya Torres had given everything so they could see another sunrise. We surprised them, Elena said softly. All of them. The Dravaki thought we would break. The Kathrani thought we would conquer. Neither of them expected us to choose hope over fear. Victor smiled. Then they did not understand humanity at all. Far below, children played in parks and schools opened their doors, and people went about the ordinary business of living. And above them, among the stars they had finally joined, a new era was beginning, not an era built not on power or fear, but on the simple, stubborn, magnificent belief that the universe could be better than it was. Maya had been right, Victor thought. Humanity was worth dying for Dot, and now, finally, they had the chance to prove it was worth living for too. The end.